Welcome everyone to my review of the final part of IDW Sonic's Fang the Hunter miniseries. Before getting started, I'm giving a major spoiler warning here. Not only does this issue feature something that was revealed last time, there's a major revelation towards the end of this issue that may not go over well with some people. So I implore you, please read the issue first before watching my review if you do not want the surprise ruined. If you have read it, or don't care about being spoiled, let's get to it. But first, recap time. The Hard Boiled Heavies have taken control of Eggman's new air fortress, the Egg Wing, and have found the means to make it go from place to place. The Warp Topaz. Yes, that one. Sonic and Tails were in the process of tracking the energy signature, not knowing it's coming from the gem that will cause them headaches in the future. The Fang gang, however, located the Egg Wing, now renamed the Heavy Wing, first, after Eggman pressed them into his services. They fought their way to the generator and stole the Topaz, but this caught the attention of all 5 Heavies, and they planned to take it back from their cold, dead hands. So, what does the Fang gang do when surrounded by 5 powerful robots? Fang has the perfect answer. Run away. The Hunter calls for the Marvelous Queen, but since the fortress is huge, they have to meet it halfway. That's a problem for the trio because the Heavies are in pursuit, and Ryder's about to catch them. Bark though is able to take Ryder out by using her own mace against her, and the impact of a nearby wall. Here's where the Fang gang gets separated from one another. First is Bark. Heavy King personally takes him on after ordering the others to follow Fang and Bean. Next is Bean. There's a brief moment where Fang goes off panel, but he reappears to have Bean follow him, right towards a dead end. Turns out Fang here is Heavy Magician in disguise. With Heavy Gunner popping in from the other side, Bean's trapped. That leaves the real Fang to tangle with Heavy Shinobi. He wears Fang down with an ice sword until, well, the Hunter gets frozen in an ice block and shoved towards a wall. It's pretty much his boss fight from Sonic Mania. Oddly enough, those ice blocks don't hurt the victim, it just stuns them, like in the case of Fang here. What Heavy Shinobi didn't count on is the Marvelous Queen arriving to turn the tables. After giving Shinobi a taste of his own medicine, Fang gives his beauty a reward by installing the Warp Topaz. Back over to Bean. Trapped in a room with a gunner and a magician, and the only thing available are explosives that probably would do nothing against them, what does Bean do? Make a much bigger bomb. It works, though something tells me this is not the first time Bean's done this. Fang warps in to pick up Bean and get the heck out of there, but Bean reminds them that Bark still needs them. The two then go to pick him up, much to Fang's reluctance. Bark's actually holding his own against Heavy King, something even Heavy King acknowledges. But in the end, it's still one admittedly strong person against a much stronger robot. Before King can deal the finishing blow, Fang and Bean warp in. Fang thanks Heavy King for the gem, and the Fang gang warp out of there. Prior to them leaving, Sonic and Tails were able to track down the Heavy Wing, and they encounter practically no resistance from the moment they land all the way to the main reactor, much to Sonic's annoyance. Tails is able to rig the reactor to blow within a few minutes. That got the attention of the Egg Robos on board. And so the Heavy's plans to bombard the world have sunk. Heavy King swallows his pride and contacts Eggman. He says Sonic and Tails have wrecked the ship during their final test flight, and with it being unsalvageable, his forces need to be picked up. Eggman will oblige, but since it took Heavy King a long time to reply to him, he will delay their rescue. Congratulations, Heavy King, you played yourself. Sonic and Tails fly off, content they were able to salvage an otherwise dull outing. Sonic, however, can't shake the feeling that someone else did most of the work. And indeed, the ones who did the actual work arrive at a random but safe location. Fang is so happy about what his bike can do now, he doesn't even care about the 8th Emerald quest anymore. That was the breaking point for Bean and Bark. After everything they just went through, if Fang is done with the 8th Emerald quest, then they are done with him. The two detach their sidecars and head off to do their own thing. That's when Eggman calls to find out what he's learned about his egg wing. Fang reports that the Heavies took the ship for themselves, and because he wanted to keep the warp topaz for himself, lies to Eggman about how it went from place to place quickly. Plus, he admits there is no 8th emerald. Believing things are square between him and Eggman, Fang prepares to go looking for another gig until Eggman stops him. The Doctor has a new job in mind for the Hunter. There's a newly discovered island Eggman wants to set up shop at, and wants Fang to determine if it's safe in the first place. With the promise of payment this time, and all for himself, Fang heads off to meet Eggman at this new island. And that's where the miniseries ends. The comic actually shows us what this new island looks like. So let's take a quick look at it and, it kinda looks like the island from Sonic Superstar. Oh. So this whole time, the Fang miniseries has been a prelude to Sonic Superstars. I'm not sure how I feel about this. Going into this miniseries, I thought it was going to be a fun, one-off adventure with the occasional game nods, where we're rooting for the underdogs to score some sort of victory against all odds. And I suppose that's mostly the case. But now that we know that this leads directly into a game that's, as of this writing, several months old, it kinda makes it hard to root for Fang considering all the things he does in that game. In retrospect, I should have seen this coming, since his main goal in the miniseries is to get enough money from the supposed 8th emerald to upgrade his bike. Even though the 8th emerald turned out to be hogwash after all, Fang did get his first upgrade at the end of the miniseries, and minor spoilers for Superstars, he will get more upgrades courtesy of Eggman, and we get to see it as part of a long, drawn-out sequence. Ugh. Before I get deeper into the Superstars connection, let's first address the upgrade Fang's bike got in this issue. So, Fang has the warp topaz to himself. He doesn't even mention it to Eggman. I guess that's one way to preserve continuity. He will have to lose it at some point, so that eventually Starline would get his hands on it. For the moment though, Fang will utilize it to the best of his abilities. That means, retroactively, the warp topaz is technically in Sonic Superstars. It's just under the hood. Going back to the miniseries Superstars connections, it was probably planned from the get-go. While the miniseries does lead into Superstars, technically, it also leads into the official tie-in prologues to the game, the animated short Trio of Trouble, and the comic Fang's Big Break. Since Ian Flynn wrote this miniseries, along with the two tie-ins, yeah, definitely planned. By the way, if you want my thoughts on Fang's Big Break, Trio of Trouble, and Superstar story in general, I released a video about this not too long ago. The implications of connecting all this are big. Not only does this further confirm that IDW Sonic and the Gameverse are one and the same, even though some people aren't keen to the idea, it's possible that if we return to the classic era down the line, we may see a certain Sungazer, unless there's a moratorium on her usage in the comic. This actually got me thinking. And before I say anything else, if there are any IDW Sonic creators watching this, I suggest you skip ahead here a bit to this time, as I'm going to speculate a bit, and I know you want to avoid ideas from fans and the like. Let's apply this idea of setting up a game with regards to the main IDW book. I think after the whole Clean Sweep Inc. arc wraps up, the comic could set up a situation that will allow Sonic, Tails, and Amy to head to the Starfall Islands, and thus Sonic Frontiers. They can even take into account the official tie-in materials of that game. Factoring in the endings would be tricky, considering that there are two of them now. And here come the spoilers from that game. There's the normal ending where Sonic and Eggman's AI daughter Sage fight the end directly, and Sage having to sacrifice herself to save the world. Although if one meets certain conditions, there's a post-credits scene of Eggman bringing her back from the beyond. Then there's the Final Horizon ending, where Super Sonic 2 fights a The End possessed Supreme, and he and Eggman work together to take them both out. And in this one, Sage survives, and she and Eggman go home as a family. Though I should note, both endings have Team Sonic leaving the islands together while discussing their individual journeys. Sorry for the rambling, but the ending of the Fang miniseries has opened the door to a possible time jump into a post-Frontiers era in the main book. Imagine all the possibilities with Sage joining the cast. What if she, say, interacted with a certain robotic puppet? Awkward would not begin to cover it. But for the moment, let's focus back on the Fang miniseries. And creators and those who skipped ahead, welcome back. Well, we've officially witnessed the end of the Fang gang. That was a likely outcome based on what we've seen in the miniseries. And the final straw was Fang giving up on the 8th Emerald quest, the very thing his two partners wanted Fang to do throughout the story. So what gives? Well, between Fang constantly being told to give up the quest, to him actually giving it up, the Fang gang nearly drowned, got captured and pressed into Eggman services, and had a dangerous run-in with the Hard Boiled Heavies. Plus, Fang got something out of it, while they didn't. No premium soccer ball for Bean, and no portable freezer for Bark. Combined with Fang's "it's all about me" attitude, after all he was willing to ditch Bark before Bean intervened, it's no wonder the Dynamite and the Polar Bear break off to do their own thing. Perhaps Fang should have treated them a little more than just, in his words, disposable mooks, and we have seen inklings of that throughout the miniseries. Perhaps he should have sold the Warp Topaz to someone and get the money for the things they wanted, hoping to salvage the situation. But considering this is now a lead-in to Sonic Superstars, well, we can't have these two sticking around for those events, though I wonder what would happen if the complete Fang gang interacted with Trip. Would she stick with them, or still join Team Sonic? Now, is this the official end of the trio? Will we even see Bean and Bark again? Well, it depends on whether or not Sega will allow them to get back together post-Superstars. And if this is indeed the end of the group, which I hope is not the case, this was a good final outing for them between their actions last time and their fight with the Heavies. I mean, they were so dangerous, the Heavies failed to notice Sonic and Tails getting on board undetected. Well, I was close in my prediction regarding Sonic and Tails missing the action. They didn't encounter any enemies until they, or rather Tails, sabotaged the reactor. And the reactor itself looked unremarkable to them since the Warp Topaz was no longer on board. Again, preserving continuity. Still, the comic throws them a bone by having the two be the ones to deliver the final blow to the Heavy Wing and ruining the Heavies' plans once and for all. And Sonic and Tails never knew it was the Heavies all along. Sonic's reactions throughout their visit are still worth it though. Don't worry you two, your next adventure will be much more exciting. At least in universe. Before wrapping this up, I should point out the covers for this whole mini-series. The cover A's, or the main covers, have this nice effect in which the outer borders change color from yellow to purple, and the retail incentive covers link together into one long picture. Despite having an ending some people might not like, overall, I've enjoyed this visit to the more light-hearted classic era. As I said in the beginning, the mini-series temporarily has taken the place of the main book, and considering what's happening over there, it's nice to have this break. But like many breaks, it has to come to an end. However, we will revisit the classic era later this year, as it's the 30th anniversary of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and a certain Echidna will have his own Spotlight special to celebrate his debut. I have to ask, was the Fang miniseries an experiment to see if a full classic era series could be viable? Or at the very least, a miniseries that temporarily replaces the main book every now and then? On paper, I think it's possible if IDW has the time and resources to spare. And if they do follow the second method, at the very least, have the main book at a definitive stopping point. No cliffhangers that'll make people mad for months. And with that, I'll see you back over at the main series, as issue 69 kicks off a new storyline within the Clean Sweep Inc. saga. And it looks like we're getting some new Sonic Riders action. With this latest failure, I think Heavy King is starting to regret constantly betraying Eggman at this point.